wanted to show what I'm doing here on the 372. So one side here is worked on the transfer port, and the other side I have shaded. I'm using the gasket as a guide. So you can see that this part is a ramp, and so as the piston is moving down, the ramp squeezes air up. So you want a smooth transition into the transfer port. So that's what I did. We got a smooth transition here. We have shaded area here with magic marker that I need to grind away essentially. I've got the cylinder worked on pretty good. Transfers are beveled there. Internally, I did not touch the transfers at all. The timing numbers seem to work that I don't have to touch them, and I'm a little worried about touching them anyway. But I did the exhaust here, raised that a few degrees. So there's the exhaust. And the intake I raised a little bit as well. Just a little bit. And I'm going to check the numbers now and see if I have to do any more. And then I'm going to bevel the edges. I'll bevel all this and give this a good cleaning. So let's put this on the saw and see where we end up. Now I'm just going to double check my degree wheel. Good there. Now we check numbers. $99. That's pretty close. Again, if I cinch this down a hair more, I might end up with closer to 100, which is right where I want it. Transfer ports shouldn't be any different. Difficult to see them, so don't worry about that. Intake. Intake I need to smooth a little bit more, but right about there. 79, 78, 79-ish. Good, so a little bit of smoothing on that and we'll have it. And bevel the exhaust and we're good. I've got this pretty good. It's to where I want it. Now we start reassembly. So we'll start with the transfer ports and got rubber gaskets here. They fit like that. I think the easiest thing to do is going to be put them in here. So let's take some 515. We're going to give this rubber gasket a light coat. Blue Loctite. These are safety torques. And the size on these is safety torques T20. These are speed thread instead of machine thread. So they're not going to be super high torque. Go one more. She's sealed. Same thing on the other one. Just a little bit of 515 on this gasket. Put it in the cap here. I did not modify these at all. You probably could. Don't know if you should. I'm going to leave it as is. Again, the transfers, people probably mess with them all over the place, but on a saw like this, I just don't need to. Did want to make it smoother this way, so air flows better that way. But other than that, I don't think I need to do too much here. Blue Loctite. So again, blue Loctite in the holes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Done. Actually, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the exhaust is matched to this. The way to do that that actually looks pretty good. Don't even have to mess with it. This looks pretty good. I don't even have to mess with it. Again, you can open it up. On this saw, I don't see the need. I'm not racing. I'm going to shine this up a little bit though. So I opened up the exhaust. Don't know if you can see in there, but that's opened. With a stock look, importantly. And I can keep the stock spark arrestor, which means I don't start forest fires if I'm out working. And these are darn finicky to go in. Always are for some reason. Easy to come out, but darn finicky to get back in. Don't forget this tiny little screw. So this is painted up with some high heat very high temperature paint. And it was a little dinged up and whatnot, but you shine it up with a wire wheel, paint it up, it'll be fine. Now let's see if we can get this going on here. So we've port matched this. The muffler's darn close anyway, so it's not going to really make that much of a difference. Red Loctite. These are bigger, so 5mm Allen. Get her all lined up. Get her started. And use a T-handle to put her down. So now we'll put the carb on. I'm just going to start reassembling this and see how this goes. I've got the carb parts here cleaned off, reasonable. And I'm going to put some 515 here on the intake boot, or the intake boots over there. Very light coat. Don't think I need much here, because the physical seal here will be just fine. The way this was, the screw was towards the flywheel side. And if I remember right, it was fully cinched. That's tight now. I tried doing this one way and this doesn't quite work, so let's try this way, where this piece goes on here first. Now I am not sure if this is supposed to go through or not. As is, it looks like it just sits up against there. I'm not exactly sure whether that's supposed to, whether this rubber grommet is supposed to go all the way through or just sit up against. Maybe just sit up against. Okay. This flange here has got to go in there. And somehow carb goes in between the two. So let's push this back in here. And click that on. Click. There's going to be a bunch of lines that have to come through here, so we'll have to figure out exactly what's what and what goes where. Yeah, no problem. So after fiddling around with this for a minute, I think I'm going to put this down first, because one of the reasons is that I actually cannot get to this bolt hole easily without putting this plate down first. So let's put the plate down and see where that leads us. Also going to put this back on, and the original hose here seems alright. A little bit of grease. I hate when these things don't come off. Just for the impulse line there. I'm going to coat the gasket, both sides, with some 515, like I do for every one of these. I just want to see the whole thing wet. .515 again is anaerobic sealer, does not cure until it's got no oxygen. Let's put this on. The piston goes back with these towards the intake. Put a little bit of lube, 2-cycle on the rings. 2-cycle. This one happens to have a circlip that comes pre-installed. I'm going to put the pin in. And you kind of feel around for where this fits. You got to make sure you have the bearing in there, the needle bearing. Eventually it just goes. Tricky part is always getting that circlip in there before I wipe off my hands. I'll just put a little bit of 2-cycle on the inside of the cylinder here. The lube is helpful. Do not forget the circlip. You'll have to take the whole thing apart again. Dive in with the circlip. Click. Make sure the circlip rotates freely. That way this is on properly. And we're good to go there. You can put a little 515 on the actual cylinder itself. I'm just going to put a little on the thin spots here. Again, just so it's wet. It does not need to be a thick coat. You can mess up the airflow if you put it too thick. Four base plate bolts. It's plastic. Make sure the piece is down fully before you tighten anything. And you gonna want a T-handle on this just to feel it. Sorry about the poor camera work there. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is all gooped. This is on. This whole thing's ready to go. A little bit of lube on this here, just so it slides easier. So let's put this down. Let's see, and see where this goes. Don't really need ring compressors on this. You can do it with your fingers. There's at least some taper to it. Going to get this hose through here. This is, of course, the impulse line. Because it really doesn't want to go. Alright, so let's cut this on a bevel. Once it's through, you can guide it. You guide this whole thing down. Nice and easy. Make sure the partition lands in the right spot. And this did not. There we go. Make sure this partition lands in the correct spot. So far that's looking pretty good. Now we're going to take our cylinder head bolts and get those done. Blue Loctite on these. A little grease on the head here. This goes down. Don't quite feel that one, so let's see if I can get the other going. Once you get two of them lined up, you're good, because the gasket doesn't necessarily always align, and that will mess you up sometimes. So that started there. How about this one? Well, this just, we're going to get lucky here. One, two, and we're down. Let's put the other two in. And those are here. Blue Loctite again. diagonal. I don't like how that feels. That's not good. Ah. Not even in straight. Now we're done. Let's see if I can feel it. Gotta be tight. At least you don't end up with an air leak, you're all right. So, you check them. One. You can see that. 2. 3, 4. Good.